Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Today we're going to be talking about
Yeah.
the impact of trauma
Hmm.
on the mind and body.
Yes.
And your source material for this is The Body Keeps the Score
Right.
by Bessel van der Kolk.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a book that I've heard so much about.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it seems like a really powerful blend of like
Oh, yeah.
personal stories and
Yeah.
scientific insights
Uh-huh.
into something that I think a lot of times
Well,
we kind of shy away from discussing as a society.
absolutely.
So I'm really interested to dig into this with you.
I'm excited.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty, though,
Okay.
I'm curious, was there anything in particular that you
Yeah.
were hoping to gain a better understanding of
Sure.
through this deep dive?
I think what strikes me most about this book
Okay.
and why I think it's so crucial for us to explore
Yeah.
is that it really throws open the doors on how widespread trauma is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not something that just happens to other people.
Yeah.
It's woven into the fabric of our society.
Right.
It's often hiding in plain sight.
Mm-hmm.
And this book really dives deep into those ripple effects, not just on individuals,
Right.
but on families and communities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's something that really caught my attention too. Just right from the start.
Right.
The Body Keeps the Score presents some
Oh, yeah.
pretty startling statistics. We're
Mhm.
talking about the fact that
Yeah.
1 in 5 Americans experience sexual molestation as children.
Wow.
1 in 4 were physically abused by a parent,
Yeah.
and a significant percentage have been exposed to violence.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's almost like a wake-up call,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It is.
That this isn't just a fringe issue. This is
But-
something that touches countless lives.
Absolutely. It's pervasive.
Yeah.
And the book underscores that,
Even though humans are incredibly resilient,
Right.
we bounce back from wars,
Yeah.
natural disasters, betrayals.
Yeah.
These traumatic experiences, they leave a mark.
Mhm.
We carry these experiences
Yeah.
not just as emotional scars, but
Right.
embedded in our biology,
Yeah.
our relationships, even our immune systems.
Wow.
It's as if trauma becomes
So what's hard of us,
on a cellular level.
it's like this hidden undercurrent
Yeah.
that's shaping so many aspects of a person's life,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not readily apparent.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
The Body Keeps the Score does a brilliant job
It does.
of bringing this to life through personal stories.
Yeah.
And one that really resonated with me was Tom,
Okay.
the Vietnam War veteran.
Right.
On the surface, he had it all.
Yeah, seemed like it, right?
A successful law career,
Mm-hmm.
a family,
Mm-hmm.
but internally, he felt completely numb.
Wow.
He described himself as dead inside, unable to connect with his loved ones.
Yep.
It's heartbreaking.
It's tough.
But it also highlights how trauma can linger for years,
right.
even when someone seems to be thriving.
Absolutely. So Tom's experience points to a common coping mechanism
Yeah.
called numbing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as if the emotional pain is so overwhelming
Yeah.
that the brain essentially shuts down those feelings to protect itself.
Like a defense mechanism almost.
Yeah, it's a survival strategy.
Uh-huh.
In the short term, it might be necessary,
Yeah.
but long term, it prevents people from experiencing genuine joy, intimacy,
Yeah.
real connection.
Real connection, yeah.
So the key takeaway here
Yeah.
is that healing from trauma requires us to face those buried emotions,
Yeah.
not just try to suppress them.
Not just push them down further.
Exactly.
Yeah, another story that gave me chills
Oh, really?
was about Bill,
Okay.
who had a vivid flashback
Yeah.
triggered by something as simple as an ink blot
Oh, wow.
during a Rorschach test.
Interesting.
And he was suddenly transported back
Oh.
to a horrific scene from Vietnam,
Yeah,
feeling it as intensely
Wow.
as if it were happening in that moment.
it's powerful.
It really drove home the point that
Yeah.
trauma can be stored in the body,
Right.
ready to resurface in the most unexpected ways.
Absolutely. And, Bill's flashback really illustrates
Mm-hmm.
how traumatic memories are encoded in the brain differently than
Sure.
regular memories.
Okay.
They're often fragmented
Okay.
based on sensory experiences rather than a clear narrative,
Okay.
and heavily charged with emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So a seemingly unrelated trigger
Right.
can set them off,
Wow.
creating a sense of being right back in that terrifying moment.
So essentially, it's not like remembering,
Right.
what you had for breakfast this morning. It's like
You're right.
reliving it.
Yeah, like it's happening again.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so scary.
Yeah. And this makes me think about how crucial
Yeah.
childhood experiences are.
especially those marked by abuse or neglect.
Right.
The book talks about Sylvia,
Okay.
whose experiences in a psychiatric ward as an adult seem to mirror the trauma she went through in her childhood.
Interesting.
It's almost as if she was subconsciously drawn to situations that recreated those early patterns of abuse.
Yeah, it's like a compulsion to repeat.
Yeah.
And Sylvia's story really underscores how powerfully early adversity shapes us. These experiences don't just vanish.
Right.
They impact our responses.
Yeah.
Our relationships, even our perception of the world.
Wow.
Kolk calls this the compulsion to repeat.
Okay.
It's this unconscious drive to recreate familiar patterns, even harmful ones, as if trying to gain control over past trauma.
Almost like you're trying to fix it.
Yeah, like you can rewrite this story, but unfortunately this often leads to further pain.
Right, because you're just reenacting the same, repeating the cycle. Yeah. And this concept of repeating patterns is so intriguing. Yeah. It seems like understanding attachment theory could be key to unraveling it.
Okay, so the book introduces this idea of secure versus insecure attachment styles.
Right.
And how our early relationships with caregivers impact our ability to manage emotions and build healthy connections later in life.
Throughout our lives.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you could unpack that a bit further for us. What are the key takeaways here?
Well, attachment theory really gives us this framework for understanding how those early bonds create these internal working models of relationships. So secure attachment, which comes from consistent, responsive caregiving, sets the stage for healthy emotional regulation, self-worth, and the ability to form strong connections throughout life. But when caregiving is inconsistent or neglectful, it can lead to insecure attachment styles.
Which makes it harder to manage emotions, trust others, and can make someone more vulnerable to the effects of trauma.
So it's like those early experiences lay the foundation for how we approach relationships and navigate the world. And if those early experiences are traumatic, it can distort that foundation.
It can,
making it a lot harder to regulate emotions and form healthy bonds.
And that makes me wonder if this could be part of why Tom, the veteran we talked about earlier, struggled to connect with his family. Even though he desperately wanted to.
Right. It's like he had the desire, but not the
tools. And it's not just our emotional well-being that's impacted. There's a powerful link between early experiences, attachment styles, and the way our brains develop.
So this is where the biology comes in.
This is the neuroscience of trauma. This is where the book gets really fascinating for me.
It's incredible.
It explains how trauma can actually disrupt the way our brains function, affecting our ability to regulate emotions, think clearly, and even form coherent narratives about our experiences.
It's like the brain is struggling to make sense of it all.
And this is where I think the book's blend of personal stories and scientific research becomes so powerful.
Absolutely.
It's not just like a theoretical textbook.
It's grounded in real people's lives.
It's like, here's the science. And here's how it actually plays out in people's lives.
And Kolk's work is so compelling because he doesn't just describe the problem of trauma. He illuminates the science behind it. He bridges that gap between personal experience and our understanding of the brain, showing us how trauma isn't just in our minds, but etched into the very structure and function
it's like
of our brains.
That's like a physical manifestation.
It is a physical manifestation.
The brain. One of the things that struck me most was how trauma can impact Broca's area. The part of the brain responsible for speech and language.
Language processing.
The book mentions a study using brain scans of individuals recalling their trauma. And it showed decreased activity in this area. Making it difficult for them to articulate what they were experiencing.
It's like trauma literally leaves people speechless.
Like the words just...
They can't find the words.
Won't come. And it's not because they don't want to. It's because that part of the brain.
The brain is not functioning properly.
Yeah.
It's a powerful illustration of how trauma can impact our ability to process and communicate our experiences.
Right.
It's not a matter of willpower. The brain's capacity for language and articulation is compromised.
It's like a physical limitation.
It is.
Yeah, and this raises some important questions, I think, about how we approach therapy and support for trauma survivors.
Right.
If the very part of the brain responsible for expressing their experience is impacted, how can we create spaces
that's the question
where they feel safe and empowered to share what they've been through?
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much trauma is locked inside unvoiced.
Yeah.
Because the very tools for expression are affected.
Wow.
And this is why it's so crucial to go beyond just talking about trauma. The body keeps the score.
Yeah.
Delves into alternative therapies, which I found really fascinating.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about those with you.
Me too.
Yeah.
For example, it highlights the limitations of traditional talk therapy.
Okay.
Especially for veterans with PTSD.
Yeah, it was eye-opening to read about how some traditional treatments haven't been as effective for veterans as we might hope.
Right.
It's as if talking about the trauma, while important, isn't always enough to fully heal those deep wounds.
And that's where therapies like EMDR come in. It's for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it uses eye movements to help people process and integrate traumatic memories.
I'll admit, when I first heard about EMDR, I was a bit skeptical.
I understand.
It sounded a little out there to me.
Yeah.
But the book presents some pretty compelling anecdotal evidence.
Yeah, there's a lot of research.
Yeah, so it's not about erasing memories.
Oh, exactly. It's not about forgetting what happened.
Okay.
It's more about changing how those memories are stored and how they impact you.
So they're still there.
They're still there.
But it's not as...
But the way you relate to them is different.
Yeah, okay.
Think of it like smoothing the rough edges of a broken shard of glass. The memory is still there, but it no longer cuts you every time you touch it.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
Yeah. The book also touches on neurofeedback.
Yes.
Which seems even more sci-fi to me.
A little bit, yeah.
It focuses on regulating brainwave patterns.
Right.
Which I understand can be helpful for things like ADHD, anxiety, and sleep disorders.
Absolutely.
All of which are often associated with trauma.
Right. So neurofeedback might sound futuristic, but it's based on the idea that we can train our brains to function better.
Okay.
It involves monitoring your brainwave activity in real time.
Okay.
And giving you feedback, usually through visual or auditory cues.
Okay.
Over time.
Yeah.
This process can help you learn to consciously regulate your brainwaves.
So you're essentially retraining your brain.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But I have to wonder,
yeah,
is it accessible to everyone?
That's a good question.
And what are its limitations?
You're right to be cautious. Neurofeedback isn't a quick fix.
Okay.
And it's not for everyone. It requires commitment.
Yeah.
And can be expensive.
Right.
More research is needed.
Yeah.
To fully understand its long-term effects and effectiveness for different conditions.
Makes sense.
But what's exciting is that it offers a new way of thinking about mental health.
Okay.
One that empowers individuals to take an active role in their own healing process.
This idea of taking an active role in healing really resonates with me.
Yeah, I think that's important.
But the body keeps the score.
Yeah.
Doesn't just focus on these individual therapies.
Right.
It also emphasizes the crucial role of social connection and support in healing from trauma, wouldn't you say?
One of the most powerful messages in the book is that social support is a biological necessity, not an option.
Wow.
It highlights that connection. Belonging, a sense of shared humanity are not just nice to have, but essential for our well-being. Especially when healing from trauma.
It makes you realize that healing isn't just about individual effort.
Yeah, it's bigger than that.
It's about fostering connections and creating communities where people feel safe and supported.
Exactly.
I love how the book connects this to the concept of Ubuntu.
It's a beautiful concept.
This beautiful idea of recognizing our shared humanity.
Ubuntu speaks to the interconnectedness of all things.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we're not isolated individuals.
Right.
We belong to a larger web of relationships. And this is especially important in the context of trauma.
Okay.
When someone experiences trauma, it often creates a sense of isolation, of being fundamentally different.
Yeah.
Ubuntu challenges that perception. It says, no, you are not alone. We are all connected.
Yeah.
And your pain is our pain.
It's about fostering empathy and understanding.
Yes.
Not just on an individual level, but on a societal level.
Absolutely.
This makes me think about the book's discussion.
Yeah.
Of creating trauma-sensitive environments.
Right.
It feels like such a crucial shift in thinking.
Absolutely. It's about moving beyond seeing trauma as solely an individual issue. If we want to truly support healing, we need to create trauma-sensitive environments in our families, schools, communities, institutions, places where people feel safe to share their experiences without fear of judgment.
It's about recognizing that trauma affects people in profound ways.
Yes.
And that we need to be mindful of those impacts.
Exactly.
It's not about coddling people, but about creating spaces where they feel seen, heard, and understood.
Precisely. And this requires us to challenge some deeply ingrained societal attitudes.
Yeah, what do you know?
We need to move away from blaming and shaming individuals for their struggles and recognize that trauma impacts our biology, our emotions, our behavior. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a natural response to overwhelming experiences.
This reminds me of something you said earlier. That trauma is often hidden in plain sight.
It is.
We may not always recognize the signs, but it's all around us.
It is.
And the more we understand about trauma, the better equipped we are.
Absolutely.
To support ourselves and others.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And in this case, knowledge can be incredibly healing.
Yeah.
The more we understand about trauma, its prevalence, its impact, and the diverse ways it can manifest, the better we can break down the stigma surrounding mental health and create a more compassionate and inclusive society.
It's about shifting our perspective from judgment to curiosity.
Absolutely.
Instead of asking, what's wrong with you? We can ask, what happened to you? And how can I support you?
That's such a powerful reframing. And it's the foundation for creating a world where people can not only survive trauma, but truly thrive.
As we're talking about this,
I
keep thinking back to the story of Bill and his flashback. It's a stark reminder that trauma isn't just a past event. It lives on in the present.
Absolutely.
Often in ways we don't fully understand.
It can be very subtle.
And yet the book doesn't leave us in a place of despair.
No, it doesn't.
It offers hope.
It does.
It shows us that healing is possible.
Yes. The Body Keeps the Score is a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It doesn't shy away from the darkness, but it ultimately illuminates the path towards healing. And it reminds us that we don't have to walk that path alone.
That's so important. It's really incredible how much our understanding of trauma has evolved. Even in recent years, we're discovering new therapies, new approaches, new ways to support individuals and communities on their healing journeys.
It's like we're finally starting to acknowledge this hidden epidemic that's been impacting us for generations.
And as we learn more, we have a responsibility, I think, to share that knowledge.
Absolutely.
And challenge the stigma that still surrounds trauma.
For sure.
What are key takeaways for me from this deep dive has been the importance of awareness. The more we understand about trauma, how prevalent it is, how deeply it impacts people, and the many ways it can show up, the better prepared we are.
Absolutely.
To help ourselves and others.
It's about recognizing the signs, understanding the underlying mechanisms, and knowing where to turn for help. And it's also about cultivating empathy and compassion. For ourselves and those around us.
You're so right.
We have to remember that people who've experienced trauma
often carry a heavy burden of shame and self-blame.
Trauma can be so isolating.
It can.
It can make people feel like they're fundamentally broken. Or different.
It's like they don't belong. And that sense of isolation can prevent them from reaching out.
Exactly. And that's why creating a culture of understanding and acceptance is so crucial.
It's about letting people know that they're not alone. that their experiences are valid and that healing is possible.
I think that's one of the most important messages.
Absolutely.
Really.
Healing is possible.
Yeah.
Even from the deepest wounds.
Yeah.
It might not be easy.
Right.
And it might not be linear, but there is hope.
As we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I'm left with kind of a mix of emotions.
Yeah.
There's a sense of sadness, acknowledging the pain that so many people carry.
Yeah.
But there's also a sense of awe, I think.
At the resilience of the human spirit.
Right.
And the incredible capacity we have for healing and growth.
We are incredibly adaptable creatures.
We are.
And while trauma can leave a lasting impact, it doesn't have to define us.
Right.
With the right support, right tools, and a shift in our collective understanding.
Yeah.
We can create a world where people can not only survive trauma, but thrive.
This deep dive has been such a powerful reminder of that.
I'm glad to hear that.
And for anyone listening who's been touched by trauma, either personally or through someone you love, please remember that you're not alone.
Yeah.
There are resources available.
There are.
People who care.
Yes.
And there is hope for healing.
Absolutely.
If you found The Body Keeps the Score helpful, I encourage you to explore it further.
Yeah, it's a great resource.
It's a rich source of information, insights, and stories that can offer guidance and support on your healing journey.
It can be really helpful.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a privilege to explore these complex and important topics with you.
I agree.
We hope you've come away with a renewed sense of understanding, empathy, and most importantly, hope.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep asking questions.
Keep learning.
Keep learning.
And keep the conversation going.